simple person, I need to do simple lessons. I like simple because Jesus kept things simple, and I want to follow that example as best I can. While we're being simple today, we're going to be multipurpose. You'll get at least 2 sermon ideas if you want them. You'll get a little bit of a suggestion about how to help people do discussion in class. And then you'll get a homework assignment if you want to buy into that. You ever seen a Publix commercial? Publix, the grocery store? You can talk today because we're going to talk today. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure. Ever been to Publix? Why is shopping a pleasure at Publix?
Employees always ask you how you are. They're really nice.
They greet you, ask how you are. They're always nice. Why is it a pleasure?
It's clean stores.
Way extra clean. I'm not going to eat off the floor, but I could. Why is it a pleasure? Very well organized, and if you don't see well, as I sometimes don't, and you don't remember well, and you cannot find the canned tomatoes, and you don't know what aisle, you ask an employee what happens next. They take you to it. They walk you there and hand you a can of tomatoes. We, as an institution, you as a person in your own home and family, you in your local congregation, you can be Publix, or you can be Foodland, or you can be Bents and Dents. And I mean no disrespect to Bents and Dents and Foodland. Foodland has its place. They're going to be cheaper day in and day out, but you're not going to walk out of there most days saying, I've had an enjoyable experience. I have observed corporate milieu at its highest. Again, you can talk. By this shall all men know you are my disciples if you have love one for another. Whoever compels you to go with him 1 mile, go with him 2. It's always okay to do more and better than is required of us. Not a bad situation at all. You know, even with enemies, the words of Jesus, you've heard it was said, love your neighbor, hate your enemy, but I say to you, love your enemy, bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you, pray for those who spitefully use and persecute you. I've always been a fan of the 2nd chapter of Philippians, especially verses 3 and 4. Let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind, let each of you esteem others better than himself. Let each of you look out not only for his own interest, but also for the interest of others. We could go to Romans 12 and read about hospitality. Read about an honor, giving preference one to another. And we believe all of those biblical teachings. We really do. What I want to get you to help me do for just a few minutes is think about what that looks like in day-to-day life. One of the coolest compliments in all of Scripture you read in Acts 4 and verse 13. This is the sermon idea. And when they saw the boldness of Peter and John, perceiving they were uneducated and untrained men, they took note of them. They realized they had been with Jesus. Boldness and courage aren't the only signs that we have been with Jesus. People can look sometimes at our biblical knowledge and know we've been with Jesus. Sometimes they can look at wisdom and know that we've been with Jesus. Sometimes they can look at the fact that you don't panic. You keep an even keel and tell that you've been with Jesus. Sometimes they look at integrity and can tell that we've been with Jesus. Always, they can look at how we love. Excuse me. and tell that we have been with Jesus. We need to think about what second mile service looks like in real life. And again, if you'll help me, I'll be very grateful. You're sitting in chapel. The guy says, let's turn to 1 Corinthians 13 and read verses 4 through 8. You notice the guy next to you doesn't have a device or a Bible with him. What do you do? What does love look like? You share. You offer. You stick the book or pad over in front. There's no song book. What do you choose to do? Share that thing, and it looks good. And if it's an old person who knows the song and can't sing well anyway, and they don't even need it, they're still grateful. You thought, you noticed, you tried. You walk out of here into cafeteria. Hard to imagine on a thin day like this, but in the line in the cafeteria, right after you enter that line, 3 visitors to campus come in. They're standing in the cafeteria line. What does love look like? What does second mile service do? You put them in front of you. What if your schedule's really busy? Put them in front of you anyway. What if they look like people you might not particularly know? Put them in front of you anyway. What if there's somebody who's kind of mistreated you in the past and you've got some history with them? You put them in line in front of you, because it sends that super message of do not be overcome with evil, but overcome evil with good. We don't have to do the vengeance thing. It belongs to the Lord. If the enemy's hungry, you feed him. Thirsty, give him drink. Heap the coals of moral fire on his head. It's a sweet business to do. We walk out in the parking lot after lunch, and Austin's truck won't start. What does love, what does second mile service do? I got cables, you got a battery, let's get it on. And if it won't jump, what do? Dude, you need a ride? Where can I drop you? And we try to be helpful along. Busy, rainy, cold, windy won't really matter too much about what it is. Second mile service, love. You're walking down the hall this afternoon, and not to be sexist, because ladies are able and bright and all that. I'm not insulting anybody. But a lady is carrying what looks like to be a big cumbersome box. What does love and second mile service do? I like that response, and I appreciate the fact that the first word is ask. Ask to help her. And if she says, I got this, what do?
Insist.
Walk away. If she I know you're kidding, but if we take it away from her, all of a sudden we have been sexist pig, and we'll be so labeled for the rest of our natural life and probably some years longer. But the offer is the really... What if it's a gimpy old guy who's carrying something that looks big and cumbersome? What do?
That's what we insist.
We think more about insisting. It's really a safer thing. At least offer. We got a choice. You can be Publix or you can be Foodland. Foodland has its place, but we're not Foodland. Not at church. Is it Under Armour who does Protect This House? I like Protect This House. From an Under Armour kind of perspective, we're speaking athletically, and Protect This House means adrenaline, mow them down, run them over, crush them, grind them into dust, defeat them utterly, don't let them win. From a Christian perspective, Protect This House is love them with the love of the Lord. Leave them feeling like there's a God in heaven who cares for you. Leave them wanting to know more about the Jesus you've been with, because they can see that in you day in and day out. Think about this in terms of application on and on. When you see somebody step up and go the second mile, To use our example, they are Publix to the core. What do you think?
They might be trying to get something.
It could be that they're bad-hearted and trying to manipulate. What do you think? We got a lot of options here.
How do they go about learning how to deal with these things in life?
How did they learn this value? How did they learn this skill? Why are they doing what they're doing? And Austin, I'm going to follow that up for me with, how might I get a dose of that? How might I improve by the example? Other options. You see somebody step up, they go the second mile, they really look right doing it. What do you do? What do you think?
That person is completely awesome.
You do tend to highly respect them. Makes you a little more willing to listen to them, a little more willing to help them, a little more willing to appreciate them. You know what's really cool? You can do all those good things that are sweet and nice. But if you see a fellow student or even a faculty staff member step up, do that second mile love extra service thing, you drop them a text, an email, a tweet, whatever way you choose to communicate later in the day. Caught you doing good, blessed my heart. Way to represent Jesus. You do that with your youth group people back home. It means even more because they're younger and they haven't had that many positive experiences yet. They'll treasure those things. They'll keep them. They'll print some of them or write them on the mirror in the bathroom. Catch somebody doing good and say so. Think about the last time somebody went second mile for you. Second mile for you. Public examples that are easy to do. My little red truck some years ago had an alternator problem, and it was very resistant to cure. They didn't get the right belt on, and the battery wouldn't charge. It quit on me several times. Once at the bottom of the hill at Cox Creek Parkway, I can push my truck on a flat place. I can almost push my truck up a slight incline at the bottom of Helton Drive and Cox Creek Parkway, but I can't push it and steer it. When it quit that day, two Bubbas fell out of two pickup trucks in the middle of that intersection, told me to get in, pushed me across the intersection into the parking lot at the service station, and rescued my bacon and my truck right there in one fell swoop. All they ever said to me was, get in. No names, no need for recognition, no attempt to manipulate, weren't looking for pay, just nice, being good. At home, at school, on campus, you know how we feel when we step up and give our best to Jesus. It's energizing, it's biblical, it's applied theology. It releases endorphins. It makes you look good to other people. The whole day gets better when that happens. Why do we sometimes struggle to do this? We believe the verses, I haven't told you anything new. Why do we sometimes struggle to step up and be Publix?
It's awkward.
It is awkward sometimes. It is rare. And being unique is cool. Small rebellions are super if they're positive rebellions. Rebel against being ordinary. Rebel against being selfish. Rebel against having blinders on. Rebel against being the average Joe. Be somebody better for Jesus. Why else is it hard to do?
To empty ourselves like Jesus did. means that we suffer more than that person that we're blessing.
If you're at a high level, you're certainly right, Baron. You're investing time and energy. It's going to cost you something. And there will be some needy people who will expect you to do this for them the rest of their natural lives. Bad business. You'll have to put up the borders and boundaries. Worth the risk. You couldn't fear being labeled by your peers. There he goes being nice again. He always does that, hoping somebody will catch him. Well, here you're probably on camera, so you're pre-caught. Just be caught. God knows your heart and intent. If your heart and intention is good, wonderful. And if the other people need to judge and be wrong, let them. Can't stop them anyway. May as well let them and ignore them. I love second mile. Love to catch people doing good. Love to try to set an example for people to do good. And the coolest business is when we do that together corporately as a body. Maximum impact. One last question. You've done real well. I appreciate it. Suppose 99 out of 100 of us believe these verses. We try to be second mile people. We go Publix. And just to be rude to him, suppose on that day Travis chooses not to. Now he wouldn't, but just hypothetically. The people who come to campus that day, who will they remember? Who will they notice? 99 or 1? I'm sorry, they're going to notice the 1. Now, I know they ought to notice the 99, and we ought to notice the 99, and don't be the 1. Don't be the 1. Because the devil is really good with 1s. But if I read Jesus correctly, he left the 99 to go get the 1. Because he wants all souls and all hearts. This may vary culturally to some degree. It may be improper in a given culture to offer to carry the box for the lady. If you know that, don't do it. When you're not in Kansas, you're not in Kansas. But we know this culture, and we know what's proper, what's appreciated, what's extra, what's acceptable, what's second mile. Go for it. And it'll bless every single day. One last example. You're in class. Every seat in class is taken because you love Travis as your teacher and he's doing an outstanding job and this is the way it ought to be. And all of a sudden there's a knock on the classroom door and it's a visitor planning to audit class that day. Every seat's full. What do? You give him 1. And if that means you go out and get another chair, get a chair. If it means you stand in the back, you stand in the back. If it means you pull up a hunk of tile and sit on the floor, probably won't die sitting on the floor. Second mile. Every day because we've been with Jesus. Thank you, sir.